they had one. Literally one. The very last one. Oh, I'm kind of nervous. If you think it's going to take you 30 minutes to do all of them, you're crazy. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be doing some maintenance stuff on my KZ750, and it should be making the bike feel almost like new. Those things we're going to be doing are wheel bearings, headset bearings, and the swing arm bearings. In the motorcycle repair manual, it mentions every so often to upkeep with the bearings, grease them and all that, and then it says every 5 years to replace them. Granted, I haven't ridden this bike in 5 years, but because it's fully disassembled and it's old, I'm going to be replacing all the bearings just to play it safe. We got all them new, all OEM spec, which is really good from All Balls. And I mean, I've never done this before, but from what I looked up, it's very similar to the bottom bracket in a BMX bike, the way you put them in, take them out, and all that good stuff. And I've done that hundreds of times. So hopefully this goes fairly easily. And then after that, we're just going to do a couple little other things on the bike just so it actually is slightly more aesthetically appealing. But nothing left to do but jump right in. So right here are all the bearings for the motorcycle. These are the rear wheel bearings and seals, the steering bearings and seals, and the front wheel bearings and seals. These two needle bearings are for the swing arm. On the back, not only do we have the part number, but it gives you the list of all the bikes these fit, which is super cool. So we're going to start with the front wheel first. As you see, I have it leaning on the vise, so the bottom isn't actually touching the table. You got seals right in the middle, which we got to take out first. So right here is one of the seals. Hopefully it comes out fairly easy. There we go. That's one. Honestly, it's not in that bad of shape. Just going to double check the bearings to make sure they're correct. So we got 3 seals here. This one matches up with this guy perfectly. Cool. Then we got 2 other ones. As you see, one is larger. One is similar to this, but the center bore is larger. Feels okay, honestly. But oh, this feels so much better. This feels okay. It just feels a little chunky, if that makes sense, or a little, not rough, but I don't know, not ideal. In the middle, we got a snap ring holding on the bearing. Yeah, it just feels a little notchy. But funny enough, this other side, which I believe is the left side of the motorcycle, if you look, there's a snap ring and this little race here, which is actually for the tachometer, I believe. So it's interesting that there's no seal here. Granted, that is a dust boot more or less covering the bearing, but only one side had that seal. Here's the cable for the tack, and like I said, that's what goes on the race on the wheel. And as you see here, we got a bearing inside, not a bearing, a seal inside. So that's what the other seal is for, with the larger center. But I'll have to be taking this off in order to replace that. So first things first, take out the snap ring. Nice and easy. Definitely a very good investment. I've had to use these on a couple of occasions when it was for the ball in the bottom of my shifter in the Subaru, on the power steering pump, and now on here. I got these snap-on ones used for like 25 bucks, which is great. Alright, so now that we got access to this bearing, there's a sleeve on the inside, or a spacer, which you want to push out of the way so you can access the race of the bearing to tap it out. What I'm going to use to tap this out is just a longer extension. It's flat on this end. I'll show you as well. That one gap you see behind the bearing, that's the spacer that we're going to push out of the way, then flip the wheel over and tap this out from the other side. Two things I forgot. These bearings I'm going to put in the freezer so they shrink a little bit. And then this hub I'm actually going to heat up with my torch to hopefully give it a little more slack in order for it to come out easier. Moves easy enough. Bro. Got it. Yay. I guess there's no back on it. Oh, unless I melted it. Whoops. Alright, one down. Ah, fucking hot. Spacer. Ah, fucking hot. Come on, Willem. You know this. Well, fun fact. The spacer can only come out the side where the tack connects, because it has a little flange on it. So guess we're tapping it out this way. Cool. Yeah, so this spacer had this little flange on it. Everything's still fucking hot. And that was facing the side where the tack goes. Just got to remember that. So this bearing seems to be spinning fine. This guy, a little chunky. Ow! Still fucking hot. Just gonna clean this out. Make sure it's nice and clean for the new bearings. So here, I'm gonna slightly just tap around the border. So this is the side that had this race. Clean it up a bit. There's two notches that it sits in. You got your snap ring. Alright, one side done. Next snap ring goes in. I feel like that got tapped out a little. Seated. You could hear by the tone, got a little louder once it was seated. Snap ring goes right in. Alright, so now this seal matches. I think that's fully seated. Oh, that bearing feels so good. I'm glad I'm doing this, honestly. So this is done, because this is how the wheel was. Now we just have to replace this seal on the tack reader, whatever you want to call it. So I'll bring that over, do this, and then we could go on to the back. So here we have that piece. This whole bike needs a crazy wash, but it'll get that once it's all assembled. So this matches this guy. Hopefully we can get this out. There we are. 3042. Alright, so this is going to be a problem here. I don't have any drivers with a big center punch, so this is where I'm going to use a socket. I'm using an 1 3/16" socket. I think this should work. Hopefully. Seems like it's in there. This one's not as crucial, but we should be good. Just to show it fits, this is the race that it sits on, and it's nice and snug. Definitely sealed there. It's just a dust boot. Obviously keep dirt and everything out, but it's on there nicely. Boop. Definitely fits better than how it was before, so that's good. We could put this back on the bike. Now let's do the rear. Also, in the repair manual, it gives a blown up figure of the front wheel. This is actually for the Speedo, not the tack, but it shows the gear, the seal, the C-clip. But this is exactly what we just did, minus the brakes. So that's exactly how the front wheel looks. The back wheel is on the next page, so we get another idea. So outer cotter pin, axle nut, collar, that's already off. So we're going to be seeing this in a second, but you can see there's a couple bearings in there, a couple seals. So let's start taking it apart. Remember what goes on what side. So sprocket side has just the tensioner and the fat spacer. I always put everything back how it was to make it easier for me when I have to put it back together. Also, it helps filming these videos. I could always look back at them, but this is out. So 3 bearings, 2 seals. Alrighty, the big seal obviously is right there. The little seal is, I'm assuming, on the other side. These 2 small bearings are the same. Holy shit. That looks blown out. Anyway, I'm going to put these in the freezer for the meantime. The big seal is on the sprocket side, or the big bearing is on the sprocket side as well. Seal out. That was a little too easy. This might have to come off to access that other inner bearing. So we'll unbolt the sprocket. This has to get replaced anyway, so I'd say fucking replace it right now. There you go. That's the piece I wasn't aware of. Honestly, this rubber damper seems okay. Alright, so there's an inner spacer right there. And then here's the other bearing. It says replace if worn. If I could find a new one, I will. That wasn't bad to come off though. Oh, is that the O-ring? Ah, shit. That O-ring has definitely seen better days, so I might have to replace that O-ring and this rubber. I'm gonna look it up after I switch out these bearings, but at least now I'm aware. But it says just grease the O-ring. That's what it says. Inspect the hub O-ring and grease it. I'll try to find a part for it. Just while I'm in here, literally I want to refresh everything. So, that being said, but let's get these wheel bearings out. I guess this whole kit comes with an extra, depending on what bike you have. But alright, let's punch these out. This bearing felt okay. This one, not so much. Let's go grab the other ones. Now we gotta get this guy out on the rubber isolator. It shouldn't be too bad. It looks like these might have been replaced before potentially because they're sealed, but this one is not sealed, so I doubt this one was ever replaced. Snap rings. That's the big guy. That's the little guy. I also had to get new snap ring pliers. Not new, but another set because the 90-degree ones weren't deep enough. God damn it. There we go. Alright, so the camera died, but we got the triple tree out. We got all the bearings out. I didn't have a piece of wood. Where'd it go? So I used this aluminum rod, which worked perfectly. Just slid it down in here, caught the edge, tapped it out around evenly, came out perfect. Same thing coming up. And then there is a dust boot and the bottom bearing seat on here. So I put this face down in the vise, and then with that, I was only able to hammer this side, so I'm glad it didn't score anything. But I hammered back and forth like that, this way, and it came off. So now, pretty sure it goes the dust boot, the bearing, and then when this goes in, the bearing, dust boot, and then everything else. So the instructions say to actually grease this, or the factory service manual says grease them before putting them in. I'm surprised why they didn't say for the wheel bearings, but this time we'll grease it and then tap it in. So I'm just using my high temp automotive grease. Good stuff right here. I did not freeze these bearings. Hey, shit. So they are two-piece, they're not sealed. Oh, but they're roller bearings. So roller bearings versus the regular ball bearings, these are actually better because it disperses the load better, and they're less prone to actually blowing out. So this is nice, even though they're not sealed completely like they are on my BMX bike, but I guess this will work. Alright, yeah, so pack it with grease. This gets a little messy, but you gotta push the grease in there, roll it around, make sure it's all good. Oh, that's why. Oh, they're two different sizes. Silly me. Alright, so this is the bottom one. So tap this puppy in. Next bearing. Alright, well, this needs to be seated as well, it looks like. So as I suspected, you don't want to tap the bearing on, ideally, because you want it to only make contact with the inner race, not the outer. In order to get it in, I think I might use a flathead screwdriver and tap it, or I might use this little punch to just get the inner race and go around lightly. Finally seated. With minimal damage. See that? It's actually smooth now. I just need to figure out torque spec for that. This one I'm just going to match to how hard it was to take off. That feels so much better. Hell yeah. Cool. Alright, so last bearings we have to do are the swing arms, but I need to order more. Alright, so we have the pilot bearings here. We need 2 more, which I have in here. Also, to take out the, I said pilot bearings, to take out the needle bearings, we got a bearing puller. In the owner's manual or the service manual, it says to use a punch like we did with the rest, but I don't want to score up the inside of these, especially when they have to seat nicely and all that. So we got the bearing puller. Hopefully that's going to go well. And yeah, we just got to see how it works. There's 2 per side. Some models have 1 per side. So I also made something that I forgot to bring in from the car. It's a piece of all thread that runs through here with some pretty large washers that'll cover the whole surface of the swing arm, and then when we tighten it, it'll just seat them nicely. So I gotta go get that as well, but in the meantime, we got another package. And here, bro, watch this not work. Oh no, I'm going crazy already. First, there's a sleeve in here that we have to knock out. Shouldn't be too hard. Slightly in there, so I'm gonna use my other Amazon special bearing press tools to get this bad boy out. Interesting how they arrange the size, but whatever. Perfect. Put that baby on there. Whoop. A little crusty. Yep. We'll end up cleaning this grease off, but should be good. Honestly, I haven't seen a replacement for this, so we're gonna make it work. There is a tolerance that has to be within, but we'll worry about that later. First things first is the bearings. Hopefully it's this guy. This one should be good. Alright, we'll give this one a shot. This is the one that fits, no markings. Cool. So we'll go in there. You can feel the lip, which is good. Flathead. As you can tell, I've done this before and I have all my tools on me. Because I am a very bright, not so young individual anymore. I guess you get old when you start talking to yourself, huh? Seems like it should work. Honestly, for Amazon special, this feels pretty sturdy. I don't like cheap shit, and Amazon has better stuff than Harbor Freight. Not by much, but shockingly, I don't see why this shouldn't be coming out. Motherfucker. Nothing's working right now. Who would have guessed that nothing would work? There they go. Holy fuck. Heat always helps, honestly. Well, gotta clean that shit up. Same on the next side. Alright, so we got both sides out. The other side I had to use the bearing punch or press kit, whatever I got. But if you look at this, that side looks pretty good, right? Like, this is perfectly smooth. Yeah, that's a little dirty. I haven't cleaned it yet. You see slight marks from the roller bearings, where this side is extremely bad. And you could even see like my nail catching it. Not sure what the tolerance is supposed to be. I can look it up in my service manual, but with this one side looking as nice as it does and this side looking as crusty as it does, I feel like I should probably try to find a used one that's in better shape. You could even see right here, like that lip that catches. I don't know, even here I don't feel comfortable with it, so I'm probably gonna try to find a better one. You saw I used the bearing puller for this side. This other side didn't work as well, so I actually had to use the bearing press or punch thing and drive it out from the inside. Thankfully this side came out, which let me do that. It was a lot more work than this side too, which was a pain in the ass, but now we're gonna clean this up, insert the bearings, and then when I get a new pivot shaft, it'll be all set to go to put back on the motorcycle. So let's clean this up. Alright, so right here we have all 4 bearings, and this is multi-vehicle, I think high temp grease. We're going to use this to pack them, and then on the face of these there's some stamps. That's the side of the bearing that's going to face out on both sides, but we're going to pack these with grease, load it up in the swing arm, and then get a new pivot rod and we'll be good to go. The more grease you could get in, the better, because it's not going to harm them at all. You don't want these drying out and turning this pivot rod, or whatever you call it, pivot shaft, you don't want it looking like that. So definitely grease these up a nice generous amount. You hear that? Nothing. So that's packed. So I'm going to do one at a time, or one per side at a time. And then once that first one's seated, I'll then grab the next one. So this is 1/2 inch all thread, and then some nice sturdy fender washers, which is bigger than the face of the swing arm itself, and then some 1/2 inch stainless nuts. It's a little long, kind of obnoxious honestly, but it'll get the job done. Alright, those are seated. That went nicely. They're in there. And then this will slide in. As such, you can see this is loose on this side, which is the one that's super worn out. And on the other side, no play at all. So definitely need a new shaft here, but I'm gonna measure it up, see if I could get a custom one made, and then this will be done. But in the meantime, I believe that is all the bearings on the motorcycle. Headset bearings are in and snugged, wheel bearings are in, and the swing arm bearings. If I'm not mistaken, that's it. Alright, so there you have it. Wheel bearings are in, swing arm bearings are in, headset bearings are in, and they all feel a million times better. I hope that was helpful. I mean, the swing arm bearings were definitely more difficult to get out than I anticipated. Same with, I think, one of the wheel bearings and the bottom headset bearing. As long as you have the proper tools and you expect for it not to go smoothly, you'll be great. If you think it's going to take you 30 minutes to do all of them, you're crazy. I thought I could do majority of them in an hour. A couple hours later, a couple days later, after getting the proper tools and ordering more swing arm bearings and all that good stuff, we finally have it done. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Alright, so after I did the headset bearings, the wheel bearings, and the swing arm bearings, I mentioned that the swing arm pivot sleeve itself was worn out too much to where I couldn't use it. And finding parts for a 43-year-old bike, let alone the specific year of bike, that everything is so hard to find. And they don't make any aftermarket parts for it, or not many. I said I would need to get a custom made swing arm pivot sleeve. Fun fact, I actually was rebuilding the brake calipers. When I took them apart, the pistons were bad. Looked for new pistons. I noticed the hardware was crusty and decided to look for new hardware. I found a website with all OEM Kawasaki and some other motorcycle parts. And while I was in there, I was like, hey, let me take a look, see if they have this swing arm pivot sleeve. I saw things on a forum from like 2012 that they no longer made these things for the bikes. Well, this is the old one. This is the one that was super worn out. As you can see, maintenance was never done to this, and there was quite a bit of slop in there, which we did not want. I ended up finding a brand new OEM swing arm pivot sleeve for my 1980 KZ750 LTD, which they had one. Literally one. The very last one. I don't know if they're going to have any more in stock, so I apologize for anybody out there who needs one of these. But I was lucky enough to find it, and as you can see, still wrapped up, Kawasaki part number and everything. Definitely old new stock, nice and crusty. But let's see if this fits. It was meant for my bike, my specific year, with only one left. Couldn't find one on eBay. Couldn't find one elsewhere. So even though I say this is the last one and it should fit, still keep my fingers crossed. So let's put this in the swing arm, and then we can continue working on this bike. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Damn. Nice and old. Alright, let's see. Alright, so here's the swing arm. Recently painted because it was quite crusty. Let's take this off. I'm kind of nervous. Ay, ay, ay. Alright. Nothing else on here. Nothing left to it. Slight nick in the middle. That doesn't matter. But looks right. Length and everything. Look at that difference. This is why you got to maintain your vehicles. Oh. No play on that side. Tiniest bit of play on this side. But also remember, there is no grease on this. I'm going to have to put grease on the sleeve, put it in the swing arm as well. Make sure it's all nice and lubricated so it doesn't turn into this piece of shit. Because if this is the last one, I'm screwed. So, there it is. I'm super happy that I stumbled across this. Once I saw it, I bought it right then and there. I couldn't risk it. And it works. Thankfully. So, there you have it. Alright, so there you go. That's the end of this video. I still need to torque down the headset to exactly what it should be torqued down to. The wheels have the bearings pressed in, new tires, and all that good stuff. And the swing arm is going to go on once we start reassembling this bike. But I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the comment section below. I gave you all the part numbers for the all balls, wheel bearings, and headset bearings, and swing arm bearings. I showed you and told you the tools you'll need to do this. If I'm missing anything, please let me know. But next are the brakes, which is the only reason I found that Swingarm pivot sleeve. So super happy that was the case. Oddly, even though I had to spend a couple $100 more just to get these brakes up to par. Regardless, if you want to see that video, stick around, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.